Alright guys, today we're talking about the top 5 worst things about float tubing. The first thing we're going to talk about, when you're float tubing, man, the aches and the pains, the amount of body, the amount of body work, parts of the body I guess you normally wouldn't even use, it definitely wears you down pretty quick. And there's days where you're feeling up to it and you can last a bit longer than other days, but there is a timetable when you're in the float tube. It's not easy to go out and spend 10, 12, 14 hours in a float tube. So that's one of the things I'm not happy, in the long run. It's just, those are, it's much more comfortable on the bank or boat fishing than it would be in a float tube. So the other thing I really don't like about float tubing is how long it takes to get from point A to point B. Now, I have the fastest float tube on the market, to my knowledge, and I've looked at the specs all around from different companies and the best. So I've got the fastest tube. It'll move faster than any other on the water. I've got the best fins that I can really get, which, it's not like you can get anything super special. Fins are fins, but I've got some decent fins, and they go as fast as any fins will go. So I am having a lot of trouble with the wind. I'm having a lot of trouble on windy days. I'm having a lot of trouble getting across, and it takes forever to go anywhere. Okay, let's talk about the third thing when you're float tubing that just absolutely is it's a major issue. A lot of times, if you're crossing water and you're out there, you have to use the restroom. Well, it's going to take you quite the distance, quite a bit of time to go the distance. And by the time you're there, a lot of times it can just be a miserable experience by the time you actually get to a restroom to use the restroom. Oh man, I mean, it could take you a long time just to get back to the shore, let alone a restroom. Another thing is, you're in these waders. It's a lot more difficult, to get these waders. How do you go, you gotta take stuff off if you're really, layered up in the winter. You gotta take all kinds of stuff off, but, it's a difficult situation. So the next thing I want to talk about when you're float tubing that I don't like is you're always going backwards. Sometimes I could deal with it. Here and there I could deal with it. But all the time going backwards, oh my gosh, guys, it's killing me. It's just terrible. So that's another thing that you have to consider, is you're constantly, you're going backwards, and you're never going to go forward, ever. Okay, and the last thing that, when I float tube really gets me is, it's one of those things that, it is hazardous when you're in waders. It's a dangerous thing to be out there. Anything could happen. You could slip and lose your footing and go deep, and even with a wading belt, you could die. It is one of those things where, a lot of people have died in waders, in water. Sometimes that water is not that deep. So another thing, just in general, when you guys are in the float tube, a lot of times, you're going to be in open water, and if you fall out of that float tube and you don't have a life jacket, your life is in danger. So remember to have a life jacket at all times when you're on the float tube. And I really wouldn't worry about a lot of the other stuff. In general, one thing you're going to really get irritated with quick is turning the float tube, constantly turning. So a lot of times you're actually trying to get from point A to point B, and you're going backwards, and you end up missing your target because you can't actually see where you're going. It's a total disaster. So these are the things, the top 5 things. And guys, I've got more. I could talk to you about the fins and how much they wear on your ankles and your calves and your legs, and how heavy everything is once you have it on, as far as the boots and the fins and all the bells and whistles. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Not trying to detour you from float tubing. I'm just trying to give you the realistic, the truth. And we're going to do a video vice versa, talking about the top 5 best things, when you're in a float tube, the 5 advantages, the best things about fishing in a float tube. We're going to do that, so stay tuned.